Let's go to a fascinating headline. It may be enough once he throws up and running again to stop you getting on a plane to the United States of America. And this is the story. Trump team makes plans for military to hold migrants at border. The Trump administration is evaluating plans for the Pentagon to take control of a buffer zone along a sprawling stretch of the southern border and empower active duty US troops to temporarily hold migrants who cross into the United States illegally, according to 5 US officials familiar with deliberations. Would you travel to the United States? Would you feel comfortable doing that right now? Let's discuss this with Simon Marks, LBC's Washington correspondent. I asked him this question just a few short weeks ago, and I believe, Simon, your answer might have changed during those weeks.
I think it may have done, Vanessa. I was thinking about this a lot because when you asked me the question, and it was, I think, maybe 10 days, 2 weeks after Donald Trump's inauguration back in January, you asked whether I thought it was still safe for people to come to the United States. And I have to say that at the time I was slightly surprised by the question and indicated that I thought that certainly at the moment there was no reason at that point to be rethinking travel plans. I think that things have changed. I mean, we are now at the point where the New York Times this week put an article out saying what international visitors should know about tourist detentions at the US border. And there have been so many reports just over the last few days of visitors from European countries, from countries all over the world, finding themselves suddenly susceptible to a second round of screening at American airports, on occasion having their electronic devices taken away from them, their cell phones and their laptops, being required to open their social media and email accounts so that border agents can look through them. And what they're looking for, it seems, in growing numbers, is evidence that the incoming visitor may have criticised the Trump administration. We saw this extraordinary case of a space researcher from France who flew in to the West Coast to attend a conference. It was Houston, actually, a conference about the space industry. He was sent off for secondary screening. They opened up his social media accounts, found that he had been critical of some of Donald Trump's policies on social media, and immediately turned him around and sent him back home. And in fact, in conversation, intimated that they had considered launching a terrorist investigation into him. They then decided that there was no terrorist case to answer, but he was not going to be allowed into the United States to attend that conference. So I think things have changed. The vetting at the airports is now much more heavy-handed than it was. There is definitely still a small risk, but a greater risk that incoming visitors, whether they're travelling on an ESTA, whether they're arriving on visas to attend conferences or to work in the United States, or whether they're travelling like me with a green card, a permanent resident card to live in the United States, incoming visitors are now facing more questions. And I think that what you have to decide if you are planning to, you know, take the family to Disney or go to Las Vegas or attend a conference or whatever it happens to be over the next few months, is whether you still want to do that. If you do want to do that, you know, forewarned is forearmed. I mean, I think it's absolutely clear that if you've got stuff on your phone or your computer that you think could create a wrinkle should it be looked at by arriving Customs and Border Protection agents, you might want to think twice about bringing that device or leaving that material on there. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that we're in for a good long while of this, and that they are blocking people from coming into the United States simply because they have expressed criticism of Donald Trump and his policies. I can't even believe
what you're saying is so astounding. I can hardly believe you're saying it. I can hardly believe you're saying it, and I'm just dutifully listening to you saying it. And then we're both going to just say thank you very much for the delightful interview, and we're just going to continue with our daily lives. Because what you're saying is so unconscionable, isn't it? It is so mind-bendingly astounding and you know, outside the norm and beyond anything we're used to. And most people would think, unacceptable in every way, a kind of censorship of thought, of people who are just coming on holiday to Disneyland or want to do a bit of shopping at Macy's or go and see their grandma or whatever it is. It's absolutely unthinkable that you should be telling me this in this way. In the same way that you thought it was strange that I asked the original question, to hear your amended answer is discombobulating in the extreme, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think things have changed. I mean, they've changed in the last 6 weeks since I think we had that original conversation. I mean, I will say that the government's justification for this is made on national security grounds. They say they are trying to stop terrorists and criminals from entering the United States and engaging in criminal acts in the United States. And, you know, any government is justified in doing that at its borders when international visitors arrive. But there is no question from the multitude of reports that we've now had. I mean, a Canadian who was coming in on a work visa to promote the company that she works for in Canada, which sells products in the United States, an actress, but also involved in this bottled water business, found herself detained for 3 weeks before being returned to Canada, not being allowed into the country. This is a Canadian. I mean, we're not talking about people from the countries that were on Donald Trump's original list of nations that were banned, you know, travellers from those mostly Muslim nations that were banned from entering the United States. We've seen Germans detained. We've seen people from France, a backpacker from the UK who was held in Washington state, crossing into the United States from Canada, held for 3 weeks before she was returned to the UK over what appears to have been a very, very simple misunderstanding over a visa. And the underbelly to this now is the going through people's computers and cell phones to see if they have expressed views antithetical to those of Donald Trump, because those are now defined by the State Department, the Department of Homeland Security, the Customs and Border Force here, as being adverse to the national and foreign policy interests of the United States. You know, it raises huge questions about free speech here, the future of the First Amendment, all of that. But if you're thinking of coming here, I think you definitely have to war game things before you land at the airport.
Simon Marks, thank you very much indeed for the warning. Unexpected, chilling. And, you know, like saying George Orwell, thou shouldst be living at this hour. Thank you, Simon Marks, LBC's Washington correspondent.